Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 6 of Roald Dahl's The Witches. We're not going to hesitate. We're going to dive right in. When we left off in part 5, the Grand High Witch was outlining her plan to use her greatest and most recent magic formula, Formula 86, Delayed Action Mouse Maker. She had just revealed that to the audience of the other English witches, and that is where we pick up. The audience continued to chant, "Delayed Action Mouse Maker! She's done it again! Her grandness has concocted yet another of her wondrous magic child killers! How do we make it, oh brilliant one?" "Exercise patience," answered the Grand High Witch. "First, I am explaining to you how my Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker is working. Listen carefully." "We're listening!" cried the audience, who were now jumping up and down in their chairs with excitement. "Delayed Action Mouse Maker is a green liquid," explained the Grand High Witch, "and one droplet in each chocolate or sweet will be quite enough. So, here is what happens. Child eats chalk which has in it Delayed Action Mouse Maker liquid. Child goes home, feeling fine. Child goes to bed, still feeling fine. Child wakes up the next morning, still okay. Child goes to school, still feeling fine. Formula, you understand, is delayed action, is not working yet." "We understand, O brainy one, but when does it start working?" the audience cried. "It is starting to work at exactly 9 o'clock when the child is arriving at school. Child arrives at school, Delayed Action Mouse Maker immediately starts to work. Child starts to shrink. Child is starting to grow fur. Child is starting to grow tail. All of this is happening in precisely 26 seconds. After 26 seconds, child is not a child any longer. Is a mouse." "A mouse!" cried the witches. "What a frumpious thought!" "Classrooms will all be swarming with mice," shouted the Grand High Witch. "Chaos, pandemonium will be reigning in every school in England. Teachers will be hopping up and down. The women teachers will be standing on desks, holding skirts, yelling, 'Help, help!'" "They will," laughed the audience. "And what," shouted the Grand High Witch, "is happening next in every school?" "Tell us," they cried. "Tell us, O brainy one!" The Grand High Witch stretched her stringy neck forward and grinned at the audience, showing 2 rows of pointed teeth, slightly blue. She raised her voice louder than ever and shouted, "The mousetraps is coming out!" The other witches cried, "Mousetraps!" "And the cheese!" shouted the Grand High Witch. "Teachers is all rushing and running out and getting mousetraps, baiting them with cheese and putting them down all over school. Mice is nibbling cheese, mousetraps is going off. All over school, mousetraps is going snappity snap, and mouse heads is rolling across the floors like marbles. All over England, in every school in England, noise of snapping mousetraps will be heard." At this point, the disgusting old Grand High Witch began to do a sort of witch's dance up and down the platform, stomping her feet and clapping her hands. The entire audience joined in the clapping and the foot stomping. They were making such a tremendous racket that I thought surely Mr. Stringer would hear it and come banging at the door. But he didn't. Then, above all the noise, I heard the voice of the Grand High Witch screaming out some sort of awful, gloating poem. "Down with children, do them in, boil their bones and fry their skin. Bish them, squish them, bash them, mash them, break them, shake them, slash them, smash them. Offer chalks with magic powder. Say, eat up, then say it louder. Cram them full of sticky eats. Send them home still guzzling sweets. And in the morning, little fools, go marching off to separate schools. A girl feels sick and goes all pale. She yells, 'Hey, look, I've grown a tail.' A boy who's standing next to her screams, 'Help, I think I'm growing fur.' Another shouts, 'We look like freaks. There's whiskers growing on our cheeks.' A boy who was extremely tall cries out, 'What's wrong? I'm growing small.' 4 tiny legs begin to sprout, and everybody round about. And all at once, all in a trice, there are no children, only mice. In every school is mice galore, all running round the schoolroom floor. And all the poor demented teachers is yelling, "Hey, who are these creatures?" They stand upon the desks and shout, "Get out, you filthy mice, get out! Will someone fetch some mousetraps, please? And don't forget to bring the cheese." Now mousetraps come, and every trap goes snippy snip and snappy snap. The mousetraps have a powerful spring. The springs go crack and snap and ping. Is lovely noise for us to hear, is music to a witch's ear. Dead mice is piled every place around, piled 2 feet deep upon the ground. This teacher searching left and right, but not a single child in sight. The teachers cry, "What's going on? Oh, where have all the children gone? It's 9:30, and as a rule, they're never late as this for school." Poor teachers don't know what to do. Some sit and read, and just a few amuse themselves throughout the day by sweeping all the mice away, while all us witches shout hooray. I hope you haven't forgotten that while all this was going on, I was still stuck behind the screen on my hands and knees with one eye glued to the crack. I don't know how long I had been there, but it seemed like forever. The worst part of it was not being allowed to cough or make a sound, and knowing that if I did, I was as good as dead. And all the way through, I was living in constant terror that one of the witches in the back row was going to get a whiff of my presence through those special nose holes of hers. My only hope, as I saw it, was the fact that I hadn't washed for days. That and the never-ending excitement and clapping and shouting that was going on in the room. The witches were thinking of nothing except the Grand High Witch up there on the platform and her great plan for wiping out all the children of England. They certainly weren't sniffing around for a child in the room. In their wildest dreams, if witches even have dreams, that would ever occurred to any of them. I kept still and prayed. The Grand High Witch's dreadful gloating recital was over now, and the audience was clapping madly, shouting, "Brilliant, sensational, marvelous, you're a genius, oh brainy one. It's the most thrilling invention yet, this delayed action mouse maker. It's a winner, and the beauty of it's the teachers will be the one who bump off the stinking little children. It won't be us doing it, we'll never be caught." "Witches are never caught," snapped the Grand High Witch. "Attention now. I want everybody's attention for what I am about to be telling you. I am going to tell you what you must do to prepare Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker." Suddenly there came a great gasp from the audience. This was followed by a hubbub of shrieking and yelling, and I saw many of the witches leaping to their feet and pointing at the platform, crying out, "Mice! Look, mice! She's done it to show us! The brainy one has turned 2 children into mice, and there they are!" I looked toward the platform. The mice were there all right, 2 of them running around near the Grand High Witch's skirts. But these were not field mice or house mice or wood mice or harvest mice. They were white mice. I recognized them immediately as being my own little William and Mary. "Mice!" shouted the audience. "Our leader has made mice to appear from out of nowhere. Get the mousetraps. Fetch the cheese." I saw the Grand High Witch peering down at the floor, staring with obvious puzzlement at William and Mary. She bent lower to get a closer look. Then she straightened up and shouted, "Quiet!" The audience became silent and sat down. "These mice are nothing to do with me." "These are pet mice. These mice are quite obviously belonging to some repellent little child in the hotel. A boy it will be for almost a certainty, because girls is typically not keeping pet mice." "A boy!" cried the witches. "A filthy, smelly little boy. We'll swipe him. We'll swizzle him. We'll have his tripes for breakfast." "Shut up!" shouted the Grand High Witch, raising her hands. "You know perfectly well you must do nothing to draw attention to yourselves while you are living in the hotel. Let us by all means get rid of this evil-smelling little squirt, but we must do it as quietly as possible. For are we not all of us the most respectable ladies of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children?" "What do you suggest then, O brainy one? How shall we dispose of this small pile of filth?" "They're talking about me," I thought. "These females are actually talking about how to kill me." I began to sweat. "Whoever he is not important. Leave him to me. I shall smell him out, turn him into a mackerel, and have him dished up for supper." "Oh, bravo! Cut off his head, chop off his tail, and fry him in hot butter." You can imagine that none of this was making me feel very comfortable. William and Mary were still running around on the platform, and I saw the Grand High Witch aim a swift running kick at William. She caught him right on the point of her toe and sent him flying. She did the same to Mary. Her aim was extraordinary. She would have made a pretty good soccer player. Both mice crashed against the wall, and for a few moments they lay stunned. Then they got to their feet and scampered away. "Attention again!" the Grand High Witch was shouting. "I will now give to you the recipe for concocting Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker. Get out pencils and papers." Handbags were opened all over the room and notebooks were fished out. "Give us the recipe, O brainy one! Tell us the secret!" the audience cried impatiently. "First, I had to find some things that would cause the children to become very small very quickly." "What was that?" cried the audience. "Oh, that part was simple. All you have to do if you are wishing to make a child very small is to look at him through the wrong end of a telescope." "A wonder!" cried the audience. "Who else would have thought of a thing like that?" "So, you take the wrong end of the telescope and you boil it until it gets nice and soft." "How long does that take?" one asked her. 21 hours of boiling," said the Grand High Witch. "And while this is going on, you take exactly 45 brown mice, you chop off their tails with a carving knife, and you fry the tails in hair oil until they are nice and crisp." "What do we do with the mice who have had their tails chopped off?" "You simmer them in frog juice for 1 hour. But listen to me. So far, I have only given you the easy part of the recipe. The really difficult problem is to put in some things that will have a genuine delayed action result. Some things that can be eaten by children on a certain day, but will not start working on them until 9 o'clock in the next morning when they arrive at the school." "What did you come up with, O brainy one? Tell us the great secret." "The secret," announced the Grand High Witch triumphantly, "is an alarm clock." "An alarm clock? It's a stroke of genius." "Of course it is. You can set a 24-hour alarm clock today, and at exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow it will go off." "But we'll need 5 million alarm clocks," cried the audience. "We'll need one for each child." "Idiots!" shouted the Grand High Witch, rolling her eyes. "If you are wanting a steak, you do not cook the whole cow. It's same with alarm clocks. One clock will make enough for 1,000 children. Here's what you do. You set your alarm clock to go off at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then you roast it in the oven until it is crisp and tender. Are you writing this down?" "We are, your Grandness, we are." "Next," said the Grand High Witch, "you take your boiled telescope and your fried mouse tails and your cooked mice and your roasted alarm clock, and all together you put them into the mixer. Then you mix them at full speeds. This will give you a nice, thick paste. While the mixer is still mixing, you must add to it the following: the yolk of 1 Gruntel's egg." "A Gruntel's egg," cried the audience. "We shall do that." Underneath all the clamor that was going on, I heard one witch in the back row saying to her neighbor, "I'm getting a bit old to go bird's nesting. Those ruddy Gruntels always nest very high up." "So, you mix in the egg," the Grand High Witch went on. "And one after the other, you also mix in the following items: the claw of the crab cruncher, the beak of a blabber snitch, the snout of a grobble squirt, and the tongue of a cat springer. I trust you are not having any trouble finding those." "Oh, none at all," the audience cried out. "We'll spear the blabber snitch, trap the crab cruncher, and shoot the grobble squirt, and catch the cat springer in his burrow." "Excellent," said the Grand High Witch. "When you have mixed everything together in the mixer, you will have a most marvelous-looking green liquid. Put 1 drop, just 1 teensy droplet of this liquid into a chocolate or a sweet, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, the child who ate it will turn into a mouse in 26 seconds flat. But one word of warning: never increase the dose. Never put more than 1 drop into each sweet or chocolate, and never give more than 1 sweet or chocolate to each child. Overdose of delayed action mouse maker will mess up the timing of the alarm clock and cause the child to turn into a mouse too early. Large overdose might even have instant effect. And you wouldn't want that, would you? You wouldn't want the children turning into mice right there in your sweet shops. That would give the game away. So be very careful. Do not overdose. Now, I am going to prove to you this recipe is working to perfection. And that's going to be a wonderful place to pause for part 6. So she is now given out the formula. Obviously a little bit nonsensical. Don't go try making it on your own. First of all, some of those creatures she mentioned are fictional and don't actually exist. And if you put an alarm clock into the oven, I'm guessing your family's not going to be super thrilled with you. So don't try this at home, kids. So she's laid out the recipe so that the witches can make this on their own. And now she says cryptically she's going to prove that it works. How she presents evidence of this potion's effectiveness, we'll just have to join us for part 7. Bye.